Back in the 90s, parenting wasn't about safety, it was about survival and questionable judgment. 1. The car seat was mom's left arm. In the 90s, seatbelts were optional, and car seats were more of a suggestion. Every parent had one universal safety feature: their right arm. You'd be flying down the highway, a minivan full of chaos, and the second mom hit the brakes, bam, that arm shot out like a steel bar of maternal instinct. No airbags, no booster seats, just sheer reflex and the power of guilt. Kids would slide across vinyl seats like curling stones, and nobody blinked. Somehow, everyone survived, probably because back then, kids were built out of Capri Sun and secondhand cigarette smoke. Today's parents strap their kids into 5-point NASA harnesses. In the 90s, you were lucky if your dad even stopped at a stop sign. 2. The internet was a war zone. If you wanted to go online in the 90s, you needed two things: 30 minutes of patience and everyone in the house to stop using the phone. "Mom, I'm online!" was the battle cry of a generation. Parents would scream from the kitchen, "I need to call Grandma!" And just like that, your AOL chat would vanish in a digital puff of dial-up smoke. You'd hear that screeching modem noise like a robot dying, and it was glorious. Parents didn't understand the internet, but they did know it was dangerous. Every stranger online was automatically a 40-year-old man pretending to be your friend. And yet somehow that didn't stop them from letting us meet chat room buddies in person at the mall. Pure 90s logic. 3. The Great Microwave Experimentation Era. Every 90s parent treated the microwave like a nuclear test site. They believed it could cook anything, and occasionally it did. Parents reheated entire Thanksgiving dinners on one cracked plate, convinced that pressing "add 30 seconds" was culinary science. Aluminum foil? Just a little. Eggs? Why not? Metal spoon? It'll be fine. The result? Nightly fireworks in the kitchen. And when your mom microwaved her coffee for the 4th time and still drank it cold, that was dedication. She'd also make you microwave mac and cheese, which somehow turned into molten lava on the edges and cold sludge in the middle. The 90s microwave wasn't a kitchen appliance. It was an experiment in chaos management. 4. Stranger danger. But hitchhiking was fine. In the 90s, parents warned kids that every stranger in a van was a kidnapper, but then they'd casually wave down an actual stranger for a ride when the car broke down. "Don't ever talk to strangers," Mom said, climbing into the truck of a guy named Dale who smelled like motor oil and beef jerky. The logic was flawless. You, a 10-year-old, couldn't accept candy from a neighbor, but she could trust a random man to drive her 20 miles to work. Meanwhile, you were told to sit tight on the hood, holding the groceries. Somehow, the double standard made perfect sense. Parents also thought hitchhikers were probably fine if they looked clean. Clean? As if kidnappers came with dirt warnings. It was a strange era, half paranoid, half oblivious, and somehow it balanced out. Stranger danger existed, but so did blind optimism. 5. Bike helmets were for wimps. Nothing separated 90s parents from modern ones like the sacred war on helmets. Back then, if you wore a helmet, your mom would say, "What are you, made of glass?" Every kid had a bike, and every bike had one mission: to launch you into orbit via a poorly constructed ramp made of plywood and regret. Knees were shredded, elbows were shredded, pride was shredded, and parents just shouted, "You're fine," from the porch. They didn't need medical degrees. They had hydrogen peroxide and a Band-Aid shaped like a Ninja Turtle. Head injuries were character building. A concussion just meant you'd toughened up. And if you crashed, you'd get a lecture about breaking the bike, not your skull. Helmets were for the rich kid down the street whose mom read parenting magazine. You had street cred and scars to prove it. 6. The mystery of the milk expiration date. Parents in the 90s had unshakable faith in their senses. Expiration dates? Just suggestions. You'd grab the milk, see January 12th, and your mom would squint. "It's only the 15th. Smells fine." Every fridge smelled like danger, and yet nobody died. They didn't own thermometers, just noses and pure denial. Cheese turned green? Cut that part off. Yogurt separated into layers of liquid? Just stir it! These were the pioneers of food risk management. Every meal was a gamble with salmonella. Parents also insisted leftovers were safe if you nuke them long enough. That meant microwaving last week's spaghetti until it achieved the temperature of molten steel. The modern obsession with organic would have made them laugh. Their diet was 80% preservatives and 20% defiance of biology, and somehow they outlived it all. 7. Saturday morning cartoons. Bahast sacred religion. Forget church. Saturday mornings were holy. Parents in the 90s didn't need alarms. Their kids' laughter was the call to worship. From 7 a.m. to noon, the living room was a temple of sugar-fueled devotion to Looney Tunes, X-Men, and cereal commercials that could sell diabetes with a smile. The rule was simple. As long as you didn't wake your parents, you could consume unlimited sugar and television. Parents called it quiet time, but it was more like tactical parenting. 5 hours of peace bought with a box of Frosted Flakes. They didn't question what we watched either. Demons, explosions, questionable moral lessons, as long as you're not fighting your sister. And when the cartoons ended, the disappointment hit harder than a canceled road trip. That sound of static at noon, that was the end of childhood joy. Until next Saturday. 8. The legendary play outside until dark rule. In the 90s, parents had one universal commandment: go outside and don't come back until it's dark. That was it. No phones, no GPS trackers, no snacks, just pure wilderness survival training disguised as childhood. You'd vanish on your bike for 8 hours, return covered in dirt and bug bites, and your mom would just nod like, "Good, you got fresh air." They didn't care where you went. Construction site, drainage ditch, abandoned factory, as long as it was outdoors. Nobody asked questions. If you got hurt, you fixed it with the hose. If you got hungry, you stole fruit from a neighbor's tree. And if you were late coming home, your punishment was just a louder dinner bell. Today, parents monitor kids on Find My iPhone. In the 90s, your mom found you by sheer psychic instinct and the sound of a distant ice cream truck. Somehow, that era produced both stronger immune systems and a total lack of fear. 9. The cordless phone was basically a family weapon. When cordless phones arrived, 90s parents thought they'd achieved technological nirvana. Finally, they could walk around yelling while gossiping. But it also triggered domestic warfare. Every family had one cordless phone, and everyone wanted it. You'd be in the middle of a life-changing call with your crush, and suddenly, click. Mom picked up the kitchen line to call Aunt Linda. "Hang up, I'm using the phone," became the household anthem. Then came the signal interference, random static, neighbors' voices, even police scanners if you live near a highway. Parents didn't understand privacy. They'd walk into your room mid-call to ask about chores, leaving your social life in ruins. And when the phone beeped for low battery, you had 10 seconds to say goodbye or die trying. That little antenna wasn't just plastic. It was the sword of communication warfare in every 90s home. 10. The mall was the babysitter. If you were a 90s kid, odds are you were raised by the mall. Parents dropped you off with $5 and a vague instruction: don't talk to strangers, and meet me by Sears at 6. The mall was a training ground for independence, fashion disasters, and questionable food choices. You'd wander between Sam Goody, Spencer's, and Orange Julius, like a tiny explorer discovering capitalism. Meanwhile, your parents treated the mall like a daycare. They'd run errands for 4 hours while you loitered in the food court pretending to be cool. Security guards were the only authority figures, and the glowing light of an arcade screen was your babysitter. You learned life skills there: negotiation at the sticker kiosk, deception when lying about where you were, and patience while waiting by the fountain for a ride that was always late. The mall wasn't just a place, it was an ecosystem for feral children in denim. 11. The Great TV Remote Power Struggle. Before streaming, there was the remote war. In every 90s household, the remote control was Excalibur. Whoever held it ruled the living room. Parents had a sixth sense for knowing when you were about to change the channel. You'd reach for it during a boring news segment, and suddenly your dad would appear out of nowhere. "Don't touch that. The weather's next." Kids became remote ninjas, waiting for bathroom breaks or snack runs to seize control. Then came the parental betrayal, when they'd hide the remote entirely and make you get up to change the channel manually, like a peasant. If the batteries died, Dad would slap them against his palm like CPR, convinced it worked. And every commercial break was a high-stakes gamble. Flip too far, and you'd lose the channel forever. The 90s remote wasn't just plastic. It was absolute power. and chaos followed whoever dared to hold it. 12. Fast food was basically a parenting strategy. In the 90s, parents didn't use McDonald's as a treat. They used it as survival. Dinner wasn't about nutrition. It was about speed, silence, and not washing dishes. If you asked what's for dinner and heard, "we'll grab something," that meant you were about to feast like royalty under fluorescent lighting. Happy Meals were currency, and Chicken McNuggets were emotional support food. Parents pretended it was family time, but really, it was 20 minutes of blessed quiet while you drowned in fries. No one cared about calories or ingredients. If it came with a toy, it was considered balanced. Drive-thrus were their church confessional. "Forgive me, Ronald, for I've burnt dinner again." Kids were hopped up on Coke, parents on guilt, but everyone left with a smile. And that smell of French fries in the car? That was the scent of American convenience, pure nostalgia, lightly salted, and probably eternal. 13. The magic of "don't make me turn this car around." 90s parents didn't need therapy techniques or parenting blogs. They had one nuclear threat. That ended every argument. "Don't make me turn this car around." It didn't matter where you were going. Vacation, the grocery store, outer space. That phrase could silence chaos in seconds. The car was both transportation and courtroom. The front seat was the bench, and the driver was the judge, jury, and executioner. You could sense danger when Dad's hand hovered over the steering wheel like it had its own moral authority. And heaven forbid someone crossed the invisible back seat line. Fights over legroom could trigger geopolitical crises. Parents didn't actually turn around, of course. They just slowed down dramatically to show they meant business. It was psychological warfare, and it worked. That phrase carried more power than Wi-Fi passwords or grounded weekends ever could. 14. The good china. Nobody ever saw. Every 90s household had a sacred cabinet, the one full of good china. It was the museum of dishes you weren't allowed to touch, use, or even breathe near. Parents would guard it like national treasure. These plates were for special occasions, which apparently never happened, because you grew up and still never saw one leave that cabinet. They'd pull it out once for Thanksgiving, only to serve food on paper plates to make cleanup easier. The irony was delicious. Kids couldn't comprehend why we had fancy cups we weren't allowed to drink from. Were we saving them for the Queen? Were they cursed? No one knew. The glass doors gleamed like holy relics, and the dust inside was probably older than you. Parents claimed it was tradition, but really it was just a way to feel classy while microwaving meatloaf. That untouched china set wasn't tableware. It was generational delusion in porcelain form. 15. Birthday parties were DIY chaos. In the 90s, birthday parties weren't Pinterest perfect. They were organized chaos powered by sugar and denial. Decorations came from the dollar store, cake came from a box, and the entertainment was either your dad in a questionable clown wig or a slip and slide that doubled as an ER trip waiting to happen. Nobody hired party planners. Your mom was the planner, the caterer, and the bouncer. She'd herd 20 hyped-up kids into the backyard, armed with a Polaroid and the patience of a saint. Games like Pin the Tail on the Donkey somehow counted as thrill rides, and if you got a Chuck E. Cheese party, you were basically royalty. Parents didn't even care about allergies. Every table had peanuts, frosting, and mystery punch. When the chaos ended, moms handed out goodie bags filled with candy and choking hazards. It wasn't fancy, but it was unforgettable. Because every 90s kid's best memories smell faintly of plastic tablecloths, cheap balloons, and sheer mayhem. 16. The TV Guide was a family Bible. Before streaming, before DVR, before algorithms, there was TV Guide, the sacred text of the 90s living room. Every week, your parents would treat that flimsy little magazine like prophecy. They'd circle shows with pens, plan nights around sitcoms, and yell if anyone touched the remote at 8 sharp. Missed your show? Too bad. You'd never see that episode again unless it reran during a snowstorm. Parents developed psychic timing to flip channels exactly at commercial breaks and back without missing a line. The TV Guide wasn't just a schedule. It was strategy, discipline, and family unity, disguised as television addiction. When the guide got lost, panic spread like wildfire. Dad would tear apart the couch cushions yelling, "Where's Thursday's lineup?" Somehow, those pages ruled our evenings more than any parent ever could. and that tiny book of grainy listings shaped an entire generation's sense of routine. 17. The magic of VHS tapes and parental rage. The VHS tape was both family entertainment and a rage-inducing test of patience. Parents worshipped the VCR like it was cutting-edge sorcery, even though half the time it flashed 12 hours forever. Recording your favorite show required ritual-level precision and a degree in time travel. Parents would label tapes meticulously, "Do not record over, Mom's soap operas." Of course, someone always did. Few moments in the 90s matched the horror of accidentally taping Power Rangers over your dad's prized Super Bowl recording. Rewinding was a sacred duty. You'd hear that whirring noise and pray it didn't eat the tape. And remember renting from Blockbuster? Parents treated late fees like war crimes. "We're never going back there," Mom would declare after returning Mrs. Doubtfire 3 days late. The VHS era taught one valuable lesson. Technology can bring families together and then tear them apart with one accidental push of the record button. 18. The myth of the family computer. The 90s family computer was a social experiment in frustration. It sat in the living room, shared by everyone, and loaded websites at the speed of continental drift. Parents acted like it was a sacred resource. 30 minutes each, they said, timing it like Olympic judges. You'd finally log into AOL, and the second you heard that glorious, "You've got mail," boom, someone needed the phone line. "Get off the internet, I'm expecting a call." The family computer had one purpose: to make everyone hate everyone else. Dad used it for taxes, Mom for recipes, kids for chat rooms that were definitely not PG. And heaven forbid you downloaded anything. Parents thought viruses were literal diseases. That beige monitor wasn't a portal to the future, it was a glowing battleground for bandwidth, authority, and dial-up dominance. 19. The eternal mystery of what's that smell in the fridge? Every 90s fridge was a time capsule of parental confidence and expired experiments. You'd open the door and instantly get hit by an aroma that could only be described as mystery lasagna meets despair. Parents didn't throw food away, they believed in it. "It's still good," they'd say about something growing its own civilization in Tupperware. Cleaning day meant confronting ancient leftovers labeled Thanksgiving with no clear year attached. And that vegetable drawer? A graveyard of wilted ambition. But parents had zero shame. They'd pour milk into cereal, taste it, shrug, and say, "Hey, still fine." Modern families toss food the second it smells weird. 90s parents? They were culinary archaeologists, digging through expired yogurt and half a meatloaf like brave explorers of decay. Somehow, they survived. Maybe the secret to longevity isn't kale, it's just a stronger stomach and total denial. 20. Grocery shopping was an Olympic event. In the 90s, grocery shopping wasn't a chore. It was a full-body endurance sport. Parents treated the supermarket like a battleground, armed with coupons, reusable rage, and 3 cranky kids begging for sugary cereal. Carts had the turning radius of a dump truck, and every aisle was an obstacle course of free samples and marital debates over mayonnaise brands. "We have food at home," Mom would yell, even though home meant one stale Pop-Tart and ketchup. Checkout lanes were traps designed by evil geniuses, rows of candy perfectly placed at child eye level. You'd beg for a Snickers, and your mom would give you the look TM, the one that promised death by public embarrassment. And God help you if she forgot something. You'd be halfway home when she'd shout, "We have to go back." No one ever went back. The 90s grocery trip was equal parts chaos, cardio, and consumer psychology, powered by impulse buys and pure maternal determination. 21. The 90s. Doctor visit was basically a game show. Going to the doctor in the 90s was like playing Guess That Diagnosis. Parents didn't Google symptoms. They relied on intuition and whatever Dr. Phil hadn't ruined yet. You'd show up coughing, and the doctor would ask your mom a single question. "Is he drinking fluids?" She'd nod proudly, as if Capri Sun counted as medicine. Waiting rooms were Petri dishes filled with highlights magazines from 1987 and plastic toys carrying the plague. The nurse would measure your height. Your mom would gasp, "You've grown." And then came the real test, shots. Parents swore it wouldn't hurt, which was a blatant lie. Afterwards, you'd get a lollipop that tasted like chalk and a sticker declaring, "I was brave," which you were not. The whole process took 3 hours, cost $20, and somehow solved every problem. Simpler times, when medicine was 20% science and 80% maternal confidence. 22. Road trips were sanctioned torture. Every 90s family believed in the Great American Road Trip, mainly because plane tickets were too expensive. Parents called it bonding. Kids called it a hostage situation with snacks. You'd be crammed in the back seat with a Game Boy that died 20 minutes in and siblings who treated the middle seat like the DMZ. Dad would refuse to stop for bathrooms. "We'll go at the next one." Famous last words. And Mom handed out sandwiches wrapped in damp paper towels that smelled faintly of despair. The car's soundtrack? A mix of Billy Joel cassettes and your parents fighting over directions before GPS existed. When boredom peaked, you'd count cows, license plates, or your own regrets. And just when you thought it couldn't get worse, Dad would say, "Let's take the scenic route." That phrase alone added 3 hours to every trip. Yet somehow, those miserable, sweaty drives became core memories, proof that love sometimes looks like shared suffering in a station wagon. 23. Home video night. Was a cinematic adventure before streaming. Watching a movie was a sacred family ritual. Parents would drag you to Blockbuster, where decisions took geological time. You'd wander the aisles, your dad clutching Die Hard, your mom voting for Sleepless in Seattle, and you begging for Space Jam. Eventually, they'd compromise on a PG comedy that made no one happy. Then came the ritual of rewinding. Because if you returned the tape unrewound, you were basically a criminal. Parents treated the VCR like a life support machine. Don't touch the buttons. Popcorn was burned 80% of the time, and someone always fell asleep 20 minutes in. When the tape jammed, it was a national emergency requiring tweezers, prayer, and patience. But when it worked, when that fuzzy MGM lion roared, you felt pure magic. Streaming may be convenient, but Blockbuster night had something Netflix never will: the thrill of shared imperfection and the smell of stale buttered popcorn carpeting your entire childhood. Turns out 90s parenting was less about rules and more about survival. Barely. Which one made you nostalgic or nervous?